There's this clip going around where MSNBC interviewed North Carolina farmers about Trump, trade wars, and their markets. And as a North Carolina farmer, I'd like to talk about what happened there. I am a small farmer who's worked in agriculture 27 years, including helping other farmers on profitability and growing their markets. I want agriculture to succeed. And the way we get there is by being clear-eyed about what our opportunities are and how our votes will impact what those financial opportunities are. Unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues have allowed themselves to get stuck in an echo chamber. And I say unfortunately because that echo chamber makes it real tough to make clear-headed decisions about your own finances, never mind farm policy for the whole country. And that MSNBC interview is a really good example, unfortunately. Any farm bailouts should come with really strict audits and fiscal responsibility controls to make sure that money gets used to get businesses back on track. It's important to understand the farmers who showed up to be interviewed that day are not struggling little poor folks. They're big old money around here. And it so happens that both of them were born into families that built up multi-generational fortunes and very large property holdings on tobacco, thanks to a New Deal program that guaranteed very high tobacco prices. That New Deal program stuck around until 2004. In farm years, that's yesterday. That could be why they don't seem that fazed by Trump destroying their markets with trade wars. To be frank, their family's wealth was not built by free enterprise. It was built by the American taxpayer. Those are just the facts. I certainly didn't make it that way. And then those two got born into that taxpayer-created wealth. So they've never had a chance to build the market skills to keep up in a free market anyway. To normal people who have to work for what we have, losing your export market to trade wars will feel like an emergency, because it is. But when your land, wealth, and position as rural spokesman is built on the taxpayer's back and inherited rather than earned, then asking for bailouts probably feels as American as apple pie. But I'm looking at farming's future, and I'm concerned that my colleagues do not realize the backlash that is brewing against agriculture right now because of behavior just like this. What do I mean by lacking business skills? Well, when that guy says 85% of success on my farm comes from God, no, it doesn't. God is very clear on what he thought on the matter. He said, you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. Now, from a business point of view, as the farmer, we're the ones who decide what to grow. And two of that guy's biggest crops are tobacco and soybeans. Those are both crops that only work because China buys a lot of them. If I keep growing crops that are only worth anything because we can sell them to China, and then I vote for a guy who promised to start trade wars with China, that's reaping what you sow. And when someone who says 85% of his success comes from God comes begging me for money, that's how you know God ain't listening. Now, when he complains about environmental protection and how dealing with that is expensive, yeah, it is. That's why the taxpayers tried to pay you for that too. Biden put out a lot of free money, grants to help farmers do that. Those climate and conservation grants are one of the first things Trump had Elon Musk get rid of. We all know that using public money to cover your own missteps is a recipe for abuse. That's why any bailouts should have some basic financial controls. If we give that guy bailouts, will he use them to build a sustainable business and get his business back on track, growing crops for domestic consumption in the US? Great. Or will he just use them to keep growing soy and tobacco like he's been, then complaining he has to throw it away because the market's gone and come begging for more bailout next year? Now him, I don't know. But I have had encounters with Kim Carnegie, and because she's big old money, just know the story I'm about to tell you happened at a big old convention center with her family's name on it. She quartered me with a sob story about how she was trying to grow things and make more money. She really was, but it was just too hard. One time, she tried to grow asparagus, and it was clear from how she told the story that she had not done any homework before she got started. She was shocked at how much work asparagus is to grow, and she was shocked to find out what the going market rate was. Those are things you can and should find out before you commit your land to grow something. But unfortunately, it seems she didn't do that basic homework for herself. So she failed and was still blaming everybody but herself and cussing out the grocery store for wanting to pay a market rate instead of whatever inflated price she felt she deserved. Trial and error and mistakes are always going to be part of the learning process in agriculture. Ain't nothing wrong with that. In fact, I wish we talked about that more. Get rid of the stigma of not always being perfect and messing up sometimes. I tell this story now because it's starting to look like this is a pattern of behavior for her. Make a big mess up, don't take responsibility, blame somebody else. Anyway, in the moment, I was trying to be chill, so I just said, oh, well, I know, that's so crazy. That's why we start with a small plot, right? You know, because then we don't lose too much money if it doesn't work out. And when I said small plot, for commercial asparagus, I was thinking an eighth or maybe a quarter of an acre. You want to start with a suburban backyard-sized area if it's your first time growing a commercial crop of vegetables, because they always turn out to be more work than you thought possible. So you want to start small. And she said, but I did start small. I only planted 15 acres. Y'all, her family family owns so much land, she thought 15 acres was a small test plot. 15 acres is more property than most Americans will ever own. I just want to point out also, North Carolina has some of the best farmland in the country. You can grow almost anything here. It's truly a special place, and if I had thousands of acres of North Carolina farmland at my disposal, and I still couldn't manage to make a buck, wild horses could not drag that information out of me. It takes a special kind of rich and out of touch to go on TV and tell everybody that and complain about that life with a straight face. That's what echo chambers do for you. And when you live in an echo chamber, you can behave in ways that are going to create serious backlash and never realize it until it's too late. I want better things for us here in agriculture, and that starts with taking responsibility for how our actions impact our own finances. To wrap it up, poor salt of the earth was not who showed up for the interview that day. MSNBC, I really appreciate you for actually taking the time to ask tough questions and start to bring some accountability into this conversation. I want y'all to know that farmers like the ones you found that day are certainly out there, but they do not speak for all of us in agriculture. So if you ever want to talk to farmers who view ourselves like adults, can take responsibility for our own choices and our own finances, and can have an actual grown-up policy discussion instead of just pouting, call me. If you need farmers in North Carolina, if you need farmers anywhere in the country, call me. I will hook you up. Sarah Tabor out.